how did it work in your everyday life? You were not looking at that like artistry, right?
Well, I suppose that it was so much part of so much a backdrop of our ordinary lives that we didn't really realize we would have needed to make an effort to realize that we were so privileged, and we lived in an environment that maybe could be considered as not normal. We of course we thought that our environment was normal. Maybe it wasn't absolutely as normal as we thought.
And but so the two main relation to artists in this catalog is on one side to Matisse and on the other side to Duchamp.
Mm-hmm.
So what was she saying, or what was the relation to Matisse? What did you witness?
To Matisse as her grandfather, of course, I was born too late to meet Matisse. I suppose that alors, je sèche un peu. I don't know how to answer your question. We had this huge Matisse piece in the place where we lived, Océanie-la-Mer, and then we also had portraits of Jackie by Matisse, and maybe other pieces. There were not so many. There were just maybe mostly these two, and so Matisse was always there in a sense, and there wasn't the need to say much about Matisse, because Matisse was with us. We should have made Jackie speak of her childhood, of her of the time when she was a teenager, of when she was a young adult, of her relation. We should have extracted from her memories, and we waited for too long for this. So we don't really. She never spoke of it, because also for her it was normal. C'était son grand-père.
Yeah. And what about Pierre Matisse?
Pierre Matisse, Pierre, we had very. Pierre came once a year or twice a year from United States to France. When we were teenagers, when he arrived in Paris, he would literally summon us to a restaurant, and we would have a really good meal.
What restaurant? What was a restaurant?
Oh, well, it was not always the same. There was a little restaurant near the Église Sainte-Catherine in the 7th arrondissement. It was really a little place, a bistro, restaurant bistro, but with probably good food. I suppose that being not too far from the Assemblée Nationale, it was probably a place where some big wigs would go. Good. We, of course, a bit too much alcohol, but it was very lively. We had this very warm relationship with Pierre. We didn't see him a lot, but we had a very warm relationship. My sister went to live in New York when she was a young adult, and Pierre and Tana, as Tana was Pierre's wife after Patricia's departure. They were very supportive of Cathy. They helped her. They invited her regularly, maybe once a month, to have dinner, and so they were very close at this moment. But they were living in the same city. If Pierre had been living in Paris, then probably we would have seen each other a lot. I suppose.
And what about your mother relation to Marcel Duchamp?
Marcel Duchamp, I have memories of Marcel Duchamp, and of Tini, of course, and it was, of course, a great moment when Marcel and Tini would arrive in Orly, and I remember going once to with Jackie and Bernard to meet Marcel and Tini at the airport, and of course going directly to the Orly, to the restaurant that had a specialty. For a very long time, it was known for its specialty of tête de veau. And so they actually brought the tête de veau to the table before carving it.
Wow.
Well, so that, and then Tini and Marcel had an apartment in Neuilly-sur-Seine, Rue Parmentier, and then so they would go there. Then we would have, maybe they would have a dinner, but it was between grown-ups. We were kids. Of course, later in the second part of the 60s, then we were. I was then maybe I was around 10 years old, and Marcel and Tini would come to Villiers-Sougray, and we would fly kites. We would have dinner. We would fly kites. Marcel and Tini slept, had a room in the hotel that was in the village. It was not exactly a luxury hotel, a small countryside hotel from the 60s. I think you can imagine that the level of comfort was probably not exactly what we are accustomed to today. Voilà.
But what was the relation between your mom and Marcel Duchamp? She worked for him for a while, for the
Yes,
Boîte en Valise.
Yes, she was in charge of putting together the Boîte en Valise in France. I think my brother Antoine is more knowledgeable than me about this, but there was one person who was good at doing it in the United States, and there was one person who was good at doing it on the European continent. So Jackie did the Boîte en Valise for Europe, and the other person did the Boîte en Valise for the US. And so I think it was a relation of trust, first of all. It was really Marcel entrusted Jackie with putting up the Boîte en Valise, with assembling the Boîte en Valise.
So they were complices.
Oui, accomplices, oui, complice. But I suppose that the relation of trust was very, very important. Jackie went to, or had some packages delivered from the printer that contained the elements that were then folded and creased, folded, and put inside the Boîte en Valise to represent the different elements, or glued. So it was probably, I don't know, it will be interesting to ask oneself how many operations were needed to assemble one Boîte en Valise. That is, maybe somebody like Ekebank worked on that question. Maybe some other Duchamp specialists consider that question. How many different operations? But I think it was a great number of operations.
But so he was behaving like another father in a way, you think, Marcel Duchamp?
No, I don't think so. No.
So like what?
No. But he was behaving like more than a friend. More than a friend. It was more than friendship. He was not a foster father. She didn't need one. He was the husband of Tini, and they had very, very warm relationship. I don't know. Maybe I'm idealizing it, but I think that they had very good relationships without asking themselves why, without trying to find a justification for it. I heard testimony by a composer who used to visit Eric Satie or he used to pick up Eric Satie when he arrived from Arcueil at the bus stop, and then they would spend the day together, and they would go to have a cafe, then they probably would have a little stroll on the boulevard, and they would have lunch, they would have some life probably at the time when we weren't trying to find out why we were so well together or so friendly together. We just encountered and had a beautiful time.
What about Giacometti, the two brothers? There's 8 pieces in the auction.
Yes, this I have less memories. I remember meeting Diego, and I think that Jackie, until very late, still had some friendship with Diego, and